Wasabi, and welcome to Algin Gardens. I'm Karen, or Gardener KB. And today I just want to talk to you about how to grow potatoes. In particular, the focus is going to be on regular potatoes. However, this is one thing that I had to research. So, just for those of you that may be newer to gardening, um, potatoes and sweet potatoes, which are what these are in this tray, are grown totally different. Sweet potatoes are grown from the actual leaves and stems, the vines that grow off of them, is what creates the potatoes. So it's not the actual sweet potato itself that creates more potatoes, it's the vine that's attached to the sweet potato, which we call slips, that create the actual potatoes that we eat. So I just wanted to show that I am growing sweet potato slips myself. And all I did was, in a tray of soil, I just took an aluminum foil pan. It does not matter what kind of pan or how you do it. I've also seen where people take the glass and actually tip the potato up lengthwise with toothpicks, holding it in the water, partially submerged, and slips grow that way. It takes a little bit longer to me, in my opinion. So I've had more success doing it this way, so I continue to do it this way. You see them cut right now, but a few days ago, these were extremely long because I totally neglected them. I came in here to actually water and make sure the slips in the jar still had water in them, and make sure I was watering my plants over here, and some that I have over here off camera. I started cucumbers and things. So I was just making sure everything watered, and I realized that more slips grew off of the potatoes. And so I snip those slips and plop them in water so that they can root out, so that I can then plant them outside in May. For me right now, it's too early. It is April, the beginning of April here. Even though my last frost date is projected to be April 16th, 15th, 16th, I still wait until May to put out my sweet potato slips, because sweet potatoes do not like cool temperatures. They like it nice and hot, and so that's what I give them. I do the potato slips early, and that way they're ready to go. I don't have to wait for them once I'm ready to plant. These are store-bought sweet potatoes, and they were grown locally here in North Carolina, about an hour away in Benson, but I don't know what the actual variety of these sweet potatoes are, like if they're Beauregard or Georgia. I don't know what variety these are. I did order two other kinds of potato slips. I grew them last year and I love the flavor of them. The white sweet potatoes, which I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of them, but I believe they are Moraski. I'm butchering the pronunciation of it. And the purple Japanese sweet potatoes. I did order slips, and they should be here right on time for me to plant them straight outside. However, I should have saved the potatoes from last year so I could do this myself. I neglected to. There's a lot going on last year. So that's sweet potatoes. And I'll show you a quick clip of how I did, what the sweet potato slips look like in the jar for me. I keep them in the window over here, which is south facing, in a mason jar. That's it. And I just keep growing them out, growing the roots until they are. Since it is close to May, though, these slips, let me just bring it up a little bit closer. These probably will be the last slips that I get off of these. There is no need for me to cut these off, or shouldn't be. By the time these grow out, I am just going to take them off of these potatoes. And all in here are roots, so I'm not worried about having to root them. I'll cleanly, or as safely or slowly as possible, pull off this entire slip from the sweet potato and include the roots and plant that straight into the grow bags that I'm using. I plant these in 100-gallon grow bags, have plenty of success. I've done it in what's like Lord, can't even think of the word. Tins, bins. There we go. Bins, not tens, bins. You get the Walmart 12-gallon, 20-gallon, whatever bins. I've grown them in that the first year that I tried. So they will grow perfectly fine. So that's this. My potatoes, I'm going to slide this out and go to regular potatoes. My regular potatoes are two different varieties I'm growing this year, and that is the Yukon Gold and the Adirondack Blue. Forgive me now because in the other portion of the video, when I was outside earlier today actually planting them in the yard, in their grow bags, I kept referring to these as Purple Majesty. And I don't know why, except for the fact that last year, Purple Majesty was the variety that I grew. I got them, I think, from Lowe's or something like that. And this year, I got these from Tractor Supply. And they are the Adirondack Blue, but they are still purple. Anywho. So I want to talk to you a little bit before we go outside and before we go further in the video, that this is probably one of the most talked about things concerning growing potatoes, is whether you hill them or don't hill them. I grow in potato bags, so I tend not to hill them. I just plop them in, and whatever grows is what grows. What I will do is I have a couple of taller bags that I will kind of hill. And you'll see what I'm saying in a little bit. The premise is that I'm going to plant them in the potato bags with about 4 to 6 inches of soil. Rest the potatoes with the eyes going upwards, and then cover those up a little bit. As they grow and begin to flower and leaf up and stem up, once the stems get a certain amount of space or height above the soil level, I'll add more soil around those stems. And that is what hilling up is, right? So whatever medium you're growing the potatoes in, whether it's soil or dirt or straw, I've seen that, which might be kind of cool to try, then that will actually keep growing, and you just keep adding straw. Now, that is if you have chosen your seed potato to be the indeterminate type. So what I neglected to figure out, or in my research, I didn't pay attention, I didn't even think about it, but potatoes are either determinate or indeterminate, meaning that determinate, they're just growing at the level of where you planted that original potato, right? So where I placed this potato, potatoes grow around it, but they don't grow up. So that stem will not give me more potatoes. In indeterminate varieties, I will get that effect. So as the more I hill or the more I add some type of medium on top of the stems, they will begin to produce potatoes out those portions of the stem. Now, in my research, these two varieties, Yukon Gold and Adirondack Blue, are said to be determinate, which is fine for me because I have about 11 bags of potatoes out there. However, the instructions on the bag do tell me to hill. So go figure. I'm just telling you, I've had success with not hilling. In my practice, my normal practice, I have not hilled in the past, and I've gotten plenty of potatoes. I will try, depending on the size of the bag that I put these in. If they are the taller bags, I will hill, and we'll see if we get a different result, right? On the lower bags, I won't hill. So if hilling gives me more potatoes, that may be something that I continue to do. If I don't see any difference from the prior years of me growing, then I'll just do what I did last year. We're not hilling. So you'll see that. I want to apologize now because I was neglectful in pulling these out when I first got them. And I did see that they already had started chitting in the bag. So let me go over what chitting means. Chitting means is that I let small eyes grow out on the potatoes before I actually plant them. This, you don't necessarily have to do it, but it said that it helps, it gives it a kickstart. All that means is I just place it in a brown bag or in the windowsill or something like that. And I just give it time for these eyes to grow. What happens though, and despite what some people may think, they should be getting sun. If they don't get sun, they get these. They get these. Now, the problem with this is that I'll end up probably with smaller potatoes than I want to because they've grown out so spindly already without any soil. We'll test that theory because I'm still going to plant them as is. If some break off, I'm okay with that because they still have the smaller node on them. And I'm calling them node because I don't know what else to call them. They still have the smaller node. So we will get potatoes. The size is what will be a mystery to both of us. Also, I do want to say that there's a whole row of potatoes that I had outside that have bags that I never harvested last year that have started to grow back on their own. The leaves are already pushing through the soil in the bag. So I'm not going to touch those. All I'm going to do is top dress them with some fertilizer. And we're going to do a little bit of an experiment. Potatoes themselves are heavy feeders, right? So I give them granular, at where I plant them, I give them granular, like a 5-5-5, 10-10-10, whatever granular you have, slow release fertilizer. Because they are heavy feeders in the past, I've always added extra bone meal. I've been watching and doing some research and watching some of the other gardeners that I follow here on YouTube, and they have done where they've kicked up the fertilizer by adding potash rather than bone meal, with the idea that this is what will make your potatoes grow bigger. So we're going to test that theory. There were 8 bags that were left out that are growing on their own. So one of them or 4 of them, I am doing just the addition of the potash, which is going to kick up the NPK, potassium. And then there is the bone meal row. And I'll point them out and you'll see the difference between them in the video later on. That is getting the extra bone meal, which is potassium. I'm curious to see which has more of an effect on the size. So we'll see that. In the ones that I am planting brand new, these here, I am doing both because I want bigger than I've gotten last year. They were decent size, but I want bigger, so why not? Also, to make sure that I'm getting bigger potatoes, I'm not planting as many seed potatoes in each bag. Doing only 2 versus 3 to give them more room, right? The more room they have to grow, the bigger the potato is. I don't care how you fertilize them. That's just, they have the space to grow bigger. They will grow bigger. So that's pretty much it for the potatoes. If you have any questions, please in the comments, ask away. I will try to answer them as best I can. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to show you how I snipped off and got to the actual sweet potato slips and how I created them a little bit more in depth. And then you're going to see me switch to actually splitting the eyes. And I'll explain that because here's 2 different size potatoes. If I put this in, this is going to produce a bunch of small potatoes because it has so many eyes growing off of it. This one will produce bigger because there's really only 1, 2 eyes that's growing off of this one. So this one would get planted whole, and I will be cutting these in pieces, or this one in pieces, so that I can get more potatoes out of this one potato. And I'll go into a little bit more when you see me cutting and the whole waiting period and all of that. So stay tuned. All right, so we've got potato slips, or sweet potatoes, and these are potato slips. So what I did with these is the same what I'm getting ready to show you now with these. And this one is extremely long, so it's coming off camera. And what I'm gonna do is probably around every 2 to 3 leaves, I'm gonna cut it with my nippers, and I'm gonna just add them to this to get rooted slips. So I just did this one from another leaf, but I'll show you from this one. This was a piece of this same one that's overgrown now, and I've rooted it, just plopped it right in water, and it's giving me roots. So this is what I will plant directly into the grow bags outside, and I'm sure we'll end up out there together, so you'll see me do it. It's a little bit too cold for it still. I like to plant these out in May here in my zone, beginning of May. That way I can make sure that I don't have too cold temperatures overnight. Last week we had dropped to high 30s, about 35, 36. That's too cold for sweet potatoes. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting 50s overnight consistently. So I won't put these out until sometime in probably the 1st or 2nd week of May, probably. Even though my frost date is April 16th, I'm still going to give it like a week or two before I do any of the planting of my warm weather crops, like peppers, tomatoes. Cukes may be all right, so I may put those out soon, but you get the idea. So let me show you how I do it. I know you've probably seen where people will take the sweet potato and turn it upside down and have it in water, and that's how they're getting slips off. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I didn't like it. It didn't work as fast for me as actually just putting half of the sweet potato in dirt, and then from there just making sure that the soil stays moist, and getting these slips themselves. Now, mind you, I've probably taken slips off of here probably twice now, and honestly, the sweet potato gives you what it's going to give you. Like, there are times where I've had this whole one sweet potato full of slips, and for some reason this year, these sweet potatoes are just giving me slips on this side, which is fine. So I'm going to zoom you in just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. This is probably 1, 2. So I'll let these grow some more, these lower ones. 1, 2, 3. Oh, let me bring you up some. I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll let these grow up maybe about another inch or so before I take them off. This one though, this can come off right now, and let me show you how I do that. Hold on. So this underneath, if you can see, I'll bring it in a little bit. This underneath has the roots here. So there's 2 things you could do. You can snip it and it'll keep growing. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull it off of here. If I can see, and you can see all these roots. And this is kind of what I want to grab. So what I'm trying to see is if this is all one or if it's multiple. And I actually think this is like one splitting off in different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it on this side. And I'm going to leave the rest here to keep growing. Hope that makes sense. So now on this one, I have a root. And if you look at all these little nodes, let me bring you in just a little bit. Focus, focus. So all these little nodes that are showing, all of these nodes are going to produce more roots, which is good. Now, if I wanted to, bring it back out a little bit. Now, if I wanted to, I could split this and cut it here, and this will actually create two separate slips, which is what I'm going to do. And remember, each slip is probably going to yield me about 10 to 15 sweet potatoes each, which is not bad. And plop it in here. And I will plop this in here. And I'm going to add more water to this. That's really what started me on this tangent, is I was checking everything when I came to check on the potatoes, and I was checking everything to see what needed water, what doesn't, and then I saw this and was like, oh, let me show the people what we got going on. So we got a lot of roots. I'm going to add some more water, and I'm actually going to snip this long one. And I know we like on our channels to show everything bright and green and blah, 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 right? Okay, so let's be real. As a gardener, we all know everything is not perfect. Everything is not real green all the time. There's some yellowing. There's some discoloration. I'm not worried about this discoloration at all. I'm not. Nothing's perfect. Snip. And I don't want it to be perfect. I love all of the imperfections of the garden. And I stand by that. So I'm going to cut this off, creating more slips. 1, 2. See, that's a node right there. I'm actually going to go below that node to make sure that I get it. But you can see, like, if I cut it up here, all of this is going to create roots for me. This is going to create roots for me. So I could cut them in half if I wanted to, all up and down here. But what I'm going to do is, you'll see when I bury them, I'm going to bury these slips deeper, so they're going to still give me the same. And you'll see that. But we plop it in here. So that's sweet potatoes. And I'm going to let these keep producing more for me. I'm going to water this up. Again, like I said, I'm not worried about the leaves per se being totally green. For those that are newbies, you may be looking at this and saying, oh, some of these are purple, and then some of them are bright green. This is what sweet potatoes do naturally. So don't worry about this. I'm not worried about this coloration here. I'm going to let this grow out some more, and we're going to get more slips pulled off before. Now, I will say this. Do I have to do this process of putting it in here? No, I don't. But I'm indoors, and being indoors means that I have to have a way to preserve these roots. I've done it this way since I started growing, and it's worked perfectly. I can control how these roots are, or these vines, because technically sweet potatoes are the same family as morning glories, if you didn't know. They're vining vegetables. They're vining potatoes. They're not like regular potatoes where they are, tubers that are just growing underneath, but their potatoes themselves are not vining. This can vine and take over everything the same way morning glories do. So I don't have the space indoors to let them vine all over the place and do what they want to do, because these vines are going to want to root themselves and travel all across the ground, which would end up being more potatoes, sweet potatoes. So I'm doing this method because this will help me preserve and keep them growing, gaining roots and things before I put them out. Now, if you have the time and inclination, I could just take these straight off because they're in dirt and plop them right in the dirt outside. Perfectly fine. So you do which method works best for you. I'm gonna be honest, the closer I get to May, if these grow about to here by the time May 1st gets here, I'm not gonna bother putting them into water. I'm just gonna plop the whole thing off of the sweet potato and put it right into where I'm planting them. So hope that helps in the difference on how to grow potatoes versus sweet potatoes. Just keep in mind, sweet potatoes, you are planting slips, leaves, and vines. Potatoes, you're planting the entire potato. So we're back to regular potatoes, which is the purpose of this, but you know how we do. So I kind of just wanted to show you, this is actually a larger potato. And if I didn't mind, or if I wanted small potatoes, I would just plant this whole thing whole just like this and kind of stick it in the dirt upwards and say, let the growth happen. But I want to have space and not so many in the grow bags, and I want larger potatoes this year than I had last year. So what I'm actually going to do is, this is a perfect candidate for splitting the potatoes. I'll show you the difference in size. So, difference in size. This one on the right, I'm going to leave whole. I'm going to plant it just like this. This one, what I'm going to do now, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas that it can grow from. I'm going to split this actually in thirds so that I can get the best possible or more potatoes out of it. So what I'm going to do is, this is just a utility knife I have. And it was the closest thing. So I'm just going to cut it. And I'll be honest, a regular knife might have been better. But I'm going to cut it. And you see how this is like wide open? I'm not going to plant this yet. I'm going to leave this out for a couple days. Let it scab over. And then I'll plant it, this one, upright like this. This will prevent this from rotting and the potential of losing this as a plant. And because this is like this, I think I'm going to do it like this. So now I'm going to end up with 3 different plants. And I'm okay with this having 2 eyes. And when I plant it, I'm going to plant it like this, and they'll come upwards. So I'm okay with planting 3. So now this is 1 pot of Yukon Gold, and this will be separate. This one is kind of weird looking. I think I'm going to leave this one as is. What I can do is, every place that I see another eye that could form that hasn't formed yet, to make sure that I'm going to get just the 1 plant versus multiple plants in the grow bags, I'm just going to scrape out or cut out where an eye could be. And that's just me trying to make sure that I get bigger plants or bigger potatoes at the end of the growing season versus a big bag full of small potatoes. I may do that for some, but for those, I think, you get the idea, hopefully. So I hope that helps. I'll show you these in a couple days. I'm just gonna put them in the tray right now. I'll show you these in a couple days once they scab over, so you can see what those look like. And then this weekend, hopefully, we'll get all of these in grow bags. Hey, afternoon. So I just wanted to, since I was out here and doing it, I just kind of wanted to show you what I meant by I left some bags with potatoes from last year and they're growing back on their own. As you can see, these are shorter bags. And so for these shorter bags, even though they are 10 gallons, I will not be hilling these. I'm just going to let grow what's going to grow. But since these are from last year, I am going to add some all-purpose fertilizer. And then I'm going to add some extra potassium, help them grow big. And this may be debatable. I'm trying this on some. Most would say for roots or tubers, you should be adding bone meal as extra, which I do have. So what I'm going to do is these 4 bags here, I'm going to do just potash. Those 4 bags there, I'm going to do bone meal, and we'll see which ones end up bigger. That way, what a nice experiment. Why not? But I kind of wanted to show you the difference between these bags versus those taller bags over there. So those taller bags, they're more plasticky as well, so they're easier to roll down. So for those that do not have anything growing in them, I'm going to roll them down, and you'll see that in a little bit. I'm going to roll those down after I refresh the soil that's in them. I'm going to roll them down and just put about 4 to 6 inches of soil on the bottom, fertilize, add them, cover up the potatoes, and then as they grow up, I'll add more soil as they grow. But if you can see, these already started growing back on their own. Temperatures have been favorable, and I know I have potatoes in here because if you can see, this is potato leaf. So we're good. I'm just gonna add some fertilizer into these. We're getting ready to have a big rain tomorrow, so I figured this was a perfect time to get some fertilizer in them. So I'm just going to sprinkle about, and this is just to make sure they have enough to last them throughout. They'll get some liquid fertilizer as well. And don't worry, I'll dust that off the leaf in a minute. This has potatoes coming in. I'm not worried about these. You can see have potatoes coming in. Go to these. So when people tell you too that that has one, oh, all of these have potatoes in them. That's crazy. I did no harvesting of these last year. That's wild. And I think 2 of these have potatoes. So I'll add that. And then these taller bags, I'm going to refresh. I think that's a potato coming out. Holy mackerel. So these 2 bags, I'm going to refresh the soil in them, start them from scratch. So you'll see that in a little bit. So remember, these 4, we're going to do just bone meal. Those 4, we're going to do potash. Okay, so what I've done is I have filled it up to about, give it about 4 to 6 inches, right? And I got a good base on it. What I'm gonna do is I have potatoes, again, are heavy feeders. I hope I mentioned that to you before. So what I'm gonna do is on this first portion, I'm gonna just sprinkle some um, all-purpose fertilizer, a little bit of blood meal, and a handful of potash. Work this in a little bit. And our potatoes, I'm only going to do 2 because I want larger potatoes. Last year I did 3. I got the smaller ones, as you saw, nice, decent size, but I want to see if I can get bigger ones. So I'm just going to do 1, 2, eyes going up, okay? So the eyes are facing up. The eye is facing up. Then I'm going to backfill, make sure they're covered. That green out of there. Because I know they're heavy feeders. Extra sprinkle, extra sprinkle, extra sprinkle. Work that in some. And these are good to go. I'll water them in. But once I'm done with all of these bags, I probably got about, in the greenhouse, I probably have about 8 or 9 more empty bags to go. So I'll get the Yukons that you saw earlier. I'll get the Yukons and the Purple Majesties in here. So yeah, this is how I plant potatoes, hilling. And because this is lower, no hilling. But for this one, I hope you can see it. Let me make sure you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can. Cool. So for this black bag, I won't hill them. What I'll do is I'll take out the soil from about halfway through. That's where I'm going to put the potatoes. Same principle. I'm going to make sure it's been added some compost to this, and let them do what they're going to do. I'll leave a little space to add some mulch at the top, and I'll just let them grow as they're growing. I'll still get potatoes even though I'm not hilling, so I'm not worried about that. The black bags will probably be my Purple Majesties. The greens, I can't even split it up that much because I don't have as much green as I do the black bags. I do have another taller black bag, same height as this one, so maybe I'll hill those. But yeah, so for the shorter bags, even though they're wider, these wider bags, I'll do 3 instead of the 2. And that's kind of how I'm going to still get, enough potatoes in this grow bag to make it worth it. And again, you saw it, even though I struggled because this was moist with the soil. Oh, it's a worm. Let me cover him up. Even though I struggled with getting the bag up a little bit, that's because the bag itself, literally, it rained yesterday. So this bag was fully saturated and moist, which made it heavier than normal. Typically, when I'm ready to harvest, I'll let these dry out a lot. That way, when I lift it and pour it and dump it into the wheelbarrow to harvest, it's not as hard to gather the potatoes out of it. And I'm usually not scrunched down either. I do it in the greenhouse on the table. So it's a little bit easier. I like the grow bags again because I don't have a way or a natural way. I'm really not into killing pests or animals in general. That's really not my thing. They're out here and I'm in their space. So, do I want them eating up all my vegetables? No, some for them, some for me kind of attitude that I have. So I'll protect what I can, and then what I can't is just what it is. Um, but you know the saying goes. So here's how I did potatoes. Hope this helps you in your journey of doing potatoes. Please, if you have any questions about how I did this, what I do to maintain them, please let me know. I'll tell you now, like I'll give them some actual um, water soluble fertilizer as I start seeing the greening coming up. So like the ones that are already behind me that have been growing for a little while, they'll be getting some water soluble fertilizer at the same time that I water and fertilize the rest of the garden. They'll be on the same 2 week schedule that the rest of the garden will be on as far as that kind of fertilizing goes. But yeah, so we've got our potatoes. Please, if you're enjoying what I'm sharing with you in my garden, you're part of this journey with me. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.